Hello, everybody, and thank you for having us to speak today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of our 21st Century Schools programme. Our 21st Century Schools programme is a programme we've been running across the Western Balkans since 2017. First of all, it was a pilot with 60 schools in the Western Balkans taking part. And it was a combination of the British Council's critical thinking and problem solving core skills training for teachers, combined with giving teachers the skills to teach kids how to code using microbits. The programme was initially a really great success, much loved by the students and by the teachers and by our partners at the ministry. And as a result of some very generous UK government investment in 2018, we received £10 million to take the programme to all schools across the Western Balkans. And that meant that ultimately we'll be able to work with over 1 million 11 to 15-year-olds in 4,500 schools across the Western Balkans. So the idea of the programme was really to give 11 to 15-year-old students critical thinking and problem solving skills and digital skills such as coding to enable them to get jobs in the future and to have a prosperous future. The beneficiaries were obviously the primary school students themselves, but also teachers, school leaders, school inspectors, and pedagogical advisors and policymakers. I'll tell you a little bit more about how the programme is implemented. We run training for school leaders to make sure they are creating the right environment and supporting the teachers within the schools and understand the value of the programme and can support in making sure that the ecosystem is there. The bulk of the real heart of the programme is really a teacher training programme, and it's making sure that teachers have the skills that they need to teach critical thinking and problem solving skills to students, but also are able to use the microbits themselves and explain how to use them to the students. And they complete critical thinking and problem solving training and an online course in how to use the microbit. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we went from an original blended learning offer to a completely online teacher training programme using Moodle platforms. The programme is run with partners in the Ministries of Education, and that's how we reach every single school in each of the countries of the Western Balkans, and it's supported by coding clubs. We have over 2,000 coding clubs running across schools around the Western Balkans, and participants of the coding clubs, which are 47% of whom are girls, take part in national coding competitions. And then we also have a Western Balkans-wide regional coding competition. The programme has led to a number of policy interventions and curricular changes across all the countries, and it's supported by a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation programme. This is the theory of change for the programme. At the higher impact level, it's to create more stable economies across the Western Balkans by equipping young people with the skills that they need for the future. At the intermediate level, it improves the quality of primary education between 10 to 15-year-olds. And it means that students across the Western Balkans demonstrate enhanced critical thinking, problem solving, and coding skills. In the short term, it means that teachers are embedding and practicing critical thinking and problem solving and coding skills within classrooms, and that school leaders are actively supporting the implementation of coding and CTPS across the curricula. The other short-term outcome is that relevant decision makers develop and implement curriculum and introduce other related policy measures to advance CTPS and coding skills in primary schools. This gives a snapshot of the programme in numbers. So we have worked with over 4,000 schools across the Western Balkans, and we have run more than 900 critical thinking and problem-solving training events and over 200 school leaders training events. I think around 20,000 teachers have now completed the online microbit course, and the Moodle-based critical thinking and problem solving and leadership training courses. We've distributed more than 100,000 microbits across the countries, and we have more than 280 validated trainers who have passed the British Council's standards for critical thinking and problem solving. And as I said, this is benefiting more than 1 million students across the Western Balkans. We believe that the programme is unique, and the reasons the programme is unique is partly because it's the only programme in this part of the world that combines the critical thinking and problem solving training with the digital literacy and coding skills and the practical implementation of physical computing. And we believe that the two are very complementary, and it's really changed the way that teachers teach in the classrooms and that students experience learning. So one of the things we've seen is teachers enjoying teaching more because their students are more motivated, and students enjoying learning more. And for example, this is a nice example of how a chemistry teacher explained the first 20 elements of the periodic table using the microbit. It just made it an easier and more fun way to learn. One of the other unique things about the programme is have made a lasting change and had a real impact on education systems in all the countries in which we're operating. There has been curricular changes as a result of this programme, and it was the right timing really, as we worked with our partners in Ministries of Education as they introduced coding to the curricula. This is a quote from the Prime Minister of Serbia, saying at one of our 21st Century Schools events that education is an investment in people. We are preparing a bright future for the next generations with the brilliant 21st Century Schools project in Serbia, teaching children how to think and not what to think. The programme is very comprehensive, and this comes back to making sure that there's the right ecosystem in the programme and it's not a one-off intervention. Due to the size and significance of the funding, it's been a 4-year programme, and that's given us the time to work really, really closely with our partners in the ministries and to really seek feedback from teachers and school leaders and to tailor the training and the interventions in a way that works for them. So it's completely comprehensive because it works with school leaders, with teachers, with school inspectors, because there's no point changing the way that teachers teach if that new teaching skills are not recognised by the inspectors who monitor them, and by working with the policymakers. The teacher mentoring support has been a really important part of the programme. So this is a quote from a primary school teacher in Belgrade in Serbia who says, "The main achievements of the project are the awareness of teachers that students can work in a different way. For the children, this way of working was a more interesting, long-lasting process and connected them with teachers from different subjects. The programme gave the idea for the introduction of block classes, which were later accepted by 2 schools in the municipality of Lazarevac." A really interesting element of the programme is, as a result of the winners of the national coding competitions coming together in a Western Balkans-wide regional coding competition, it's brought lots of young children from these countries together and has facilitated reconciliation and regional cooperation. Also, working on the Moodle platform in the wake of the pandemic had educators from all countries working closely together on solutions. So that's been a really powerful aspect of the programme. One of the other reasons that the programme has been successful is the use of the microbit itself. Because the devices are affordable, it's meant that we've been able to ensure that more than 100,000 have been distributed to schools. That means that classrooms have enough for children to work in pairs on projects, and that means that everybody gets to have a go. And we believe that's one of the reasons why the programme has done well, both with girls, but also with vulnerable children. The kids have really responded to the challenges of identifying a problem and using the microbit to solve it. And we've had some spectacular results, and we've seen that through our coding competitions. This particular example is from a a team in Montenegro who came up with a invention. It's called System for Maintaining an Uninterrupted Flow in Mini Hydro Power Plants Using Microcomputers. And actually that has been patented and registered with the Ministry of Economic Development in Montenegro, which is a fantastic result for the programme and for this pair of 14-year-old boys. One of the other things that make the programme unique is there is really strong evidence that it has positive benefits on vulnerable children. This is something that we were picking up by talking to teachers in the margins of the coding competitions. And teachers were telling us that this programme was enabling them to see talent in some kids that they had previously thought were not very interested in school, not very motivated, not very successful, and had in some cases given up on. And because this leveled the playing field and it was a new type of skills, because it was different and a different type of learning, this programme enabled teachers to spot talent where they hadn't seen it before and really engage students who are on the margins or in the periphery, often from quite low socioeconomic backgrounds. It's also had a really powerful impact on girls. And one of the things that girls have liked about the programme is it has been not just about coding for coding's sake, but this holistic idea of identifying a problem within a community, fixing a problem. And a lot of the kind of problems that the kids have identified have really been around real issues that schools are facing. So it's been issues in the community, issues with the environment. We've seen lots of microbit related environmental programs. We had a great example of a school in one of the countries where the kids were too cold during the winter, and they used the microbit to present a case to the local authorities to turn the heating up, which I thought was a really fantastic and practical example of using a microbit to get a kind of key result. But I won't dwell on this too much because my colleague Nina is shortly going to be talking about the results of a report that we have just published around the impact of the programme on vulnerable children. So just to go into a bit more detail then, this is some of the key achievements of the programme so far. So there's been around 4,000 schools involved, more than 15,000 teachers trained. We've provided plenty of resources, including training guides, training online and face-to-face, guides for how to put your code club together, best practices guides, lots of different lesson guides and lesson planning tools. We've delivered mentorship visits. And as I said, I think now 20,000 teachers have completed the online microbit course. And there's a pool of 283 validated trainers developed. For students, there are more than 2,000 coding clubs operating. And as I said previously, 46% of those participants are girls. Lots of cross-curricular school projects have been introduced and regional national coding challenges organised, high quality lesson plans with CTPS techniques and coding, and lots of fun has been had with the microbit. In terms of the school leaders, they have received the microbits in the schools. They have had their own school leader trainings and materials. And in terms of education policy, we have worked very hard to make sure the school inspectors and pedagogical advisors are changed. And these changes have been made to the ICT curriculum. New textbooks have been developed. And there's been a revision of some of the digital competency frameworks in these countries and training for ICT teachers to implement the new curricula. We're now coming to the end of the first phase of the programme, which has been operating now since the pilot in 2017. And we are now looking to work with another funder to roll the programme out to younger audiences of 9 to 11-year-olds. There's been a huge demand from our partners in the ministries to continue with this programme, from the kids involved, from the parents. It's been a fantastic programme, and we're very grateful to the fantastic collaboration that we've had with Microbit. So I think I'll leave it there. Thank you. And I'll move on to my colleague, Nina.
Thanks so much, Claire. That was wonderful. We're just trying to get Nina to be able to join as a speaker. So we'll just take a moment to do that now, and hopefully we can get her on here to be able to share as well. So we'll just be a moment. Claire, we're just trying a few more things to see if we can get Nina in, so I'll report back shortly. Thanks for your patience. Amazing. Nina, you made it. Thank you so much. Welcome. Are you able to hear me okay, Nina?
Share screen. Entire screen, кажи.
So Nina, we can hear you on our end. Are you able to hear us?
Okay, sorry, I cannot hear anything, but I understand that you can hear me, and apologize for this break because there were difficulties with joining the session for some reason. Apologize once again. Hello, everyone, and greetings from Belgrade, Serbia. It's a pleasure to be here today with you at Microbit Live conference, and it's also a great opportunity for us from the British Council to be able to present our Western Balkans 21st Century Schools program. I trust you have heard a lot from Clare, because I was not unfortunately able to listen to her presentation, and about our impact across the schools, primary schools in the Western Balkans. However, I will use now the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the impact of the 21st Century Schools program on vulnerable children. The research was conducted based on the facts that we have heard throughout the program implementation, that there were very positive effects on vulnerable children across the Western Balkans. However, it is important to say that our original program design was not specifically addressing activities aimed towards vulnerable children. However, hearing and talking to our implementing partners, mentors, teachers, and trainers, we have heard a lot of anecdotal stories saying how the pedagogy used within the program influenced increased and more engaging participation of children who were understood or perceived as more vulnerable. In order to establish whether these observations held any merit, we have commissioned an independent qualitative research, which was performed by a team of regional researchers, and which provided evidence of what were enablers or inhibiting factors for engagement of vulnerable children within our program. We were pleased to learn that research findings proved that this scattered evidence we had from our program actually proved true. Sorry, I understand you are not seeing the presentation, so just a second.
So Nina, if you just click on the computer screen there next to your video and your mic options, you should be able to share your screen.
I hope and trust that you can see the presentation now, so I will continue. The findings of the research were based on the analysis of 12 case studies, 2 in each of the Western Balkans 6, comprising Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, and North Macedonia. The evidence was gathered through interviews with 89 respondents, being school teachers, principals, school pedagogists, psychologists, parents, and children. And vulnerabilities for the purpose of this research were defined in line with the OECD cross-national classification. Evidence clearly showed that the 21st Century Schools program contributed to the higher level of engagement of vulnerable children in the regular schooling process, and in some instances it really made real changes, life changes for them. It had impact on different levels. On individual level, we saw increase in motivation, self-confidence, educational aspirations. Girls, Roma, children from rural schools, as well as children with disabilities, engaged with their peers more actively and felt empowered. Their emotional and psychological well-being also improved. It was also evidence that there is impact on peer group and school level, which was the following. It was around empathy and social sensitivity for disabled peers, which increased amongst children. Children's ability to understand and support the disabled and other disadvantaged peers improved. Peer collaboration in classrooms and schools increased, and school projects that they were doing throughout the program led to community outreach events to promote diversity and inclusion. Particularly beneficial effects were on girls, against the stereotypes in our region that girls are less interested or capable for ICT. We have tried to document the impact of the program on vulnerable children by presenting some of the most striking testimonials we collected during the research from kids, teachers, and parents. One of the main findings was that the analytical and critical thinking and coding skills increased in all children, including the vulnerable children. Teachers reported visible social distances between children with learning difficulties and other children in most of the cases. However, throughout joint participation in the assignments and projects related to the program, Not only the children increased analytical thinking and problem-solving skills, but they felt equal. The feeling of equality comes from facing the same knowledge challenges, and this improved overall collaboration and socialization between children from disadvantaged groups and those not belonging to such groups. Basically, learning in a new, innovative way, which includes new technologies such as microbit, combined with critical thinking, problem solving, and interactive work with teachers, it had major positive effects on all of the children. Here is a very powerful statement from a girl coming from a very remote rural village in Montenegro. And her quote is really what makes us really love this program and bringing the impact that we do with it. So she says, now that I've seen that I can do it, that I know that I can do everything in my life. And this comes following this particular girl actually being the part of the two girls coding team, which won the national coding competition, second place in the national coding competition in Montenegro, which qualified them for a regional competitions, which I'm sure Claire talked earlier in her presentations. It's important to say that this school has only 53 students and 19 teachers, and none of the teachers live in the village, whose altogether has only 19 households. And this is why this program is really important, because it has entered the most remote schools, primary schools in the Western Balkans we have. Here also, it was very important to say that the teacher who was actually establishing the coding club was very enthusiastic and motivated, and she wanted to engage as many children as possible in the coding club. So she made a little graph basically saying that in her school, 79% of girls were showing interest to code, only versus 57% for boys. So it obviously had an impact on girls to increase their interest in coding and using microbit. She also showed that, for example, in her schools, the most interested pupils were from the 7th grade who participated in coding clubs, and that a little bit, I assume, because children in the higher 9th grade were already preparing for the secondary, for the gymnasiums or secondary education, had less time for these extracurricular activities. I also would like to highlight that within our program, thanks to support provided to schools to establish coding clubs, based on the data collected, more than 50% of the schools involved in the program, which is a bit over 2,000, established coding clubs with very high percentage of girls participating, being on average 46% across the Western Balkans. And it's needless to say that using microbit technology in different teaching subjects improved learning outcomes. We have seen it in numerous testimonies. This is only one of these which says that actually using microbit made kids trying to connect different topics across different subjects, and it was realized how they became much more engaged and to learn in this interactive and innovative way. Some of the additional findings, which was also very important, is that children develop social sensitivity and empathy towards the kids. Apologize. I'm skipping through the presentation faster than I should. So children developed social sensitivity and empathy for their peers with disability. We have a very nice example about this in the school of Lazarevac, which is a small town in Serbia. We're actually working in peer groups, in teams, and having specific designated roles. Children were able to raise an empathy and social sensitivity for disabled peers across the countries. Empirical collaboration in classroom and in schools led to specific school projects, and then school projects to community outreach activities, which actively promoted diversity and inclusion. The work done through the program greatly influenced the awareness of students, especially about the autism in this school. They have used microbit to help assistants who were working with autistic children. And one of the problems they have identified in the school was that autistic children were sometimes uncontrollably leaving the room. So children did the following. They have used the microbit, which they programmed to link to another sound device, and the microbit was sending a signal to another device in case the doors were opening. The students later contributed to the celebration of the World Autism Awareness Days in school, and these are the pictures where they wear blue shirts being a symbol of autism, with the badges which says, "I exist." One also of the very powerful testimonies is about the children from the primary school in a small part of North Macedonia who had severe hearing impairment. Basically, this kid could not hear or speak. So, according to the words of the school principals, this program had a great impact on him. He was very active, wanted to sit, work, follow instructions, and it was amazing. Basically, none of the teachers or principals expected that this kid can be engaged in such proactive manner. The positive change noticed also meant that this kid was initiating contact with pupils outside of the class and getting more involved in other school activities like arts, and he felt empowered. He is more involved, he started communicating with other pupils, he started getting drawing, interacting with other children, and he before used to be more introverted, where now he got involved in all school activities. And this was an additional testimony also by his teacher. Moreover, the evidence showed that the children increased self-confidence and educational aspirations. One of the statements coming from a boy from a city, Tuzla in Bosnia and Herzegovina, from very socioeconomic disadvantaged family. He's expressing his pride in this success achieved at the coding competitions and shared the positive impressions about how his parents were proud of his success. At the same time, at least now, it seems that he became very interested in pursuing his career in electrical engineering. It's interesting to say that this school for this small city actually won the national coding competition and qualified, and the regional coding competition, and qualified to participate in the BET show in London at the margins of the Education World Forum in 2019, I believe. There is also evidence of improved emotional and psychological well-being of children with learning difficulties. And we have learned through the implementation of the program that there is a specific value of collaboration developed both as a skill and as a learning method. It does lead to satisfying not only learning outcomes, but also satisfying social outcomes as well. And this powerful testimony is basically talking about the Roma children who usually felt very isolated, not mingling with other children, sitting in separate rooms during the excursions, who actually, through engagement, through the coding club, actually became more self-confident, realized that they can do some things faster than other children, even faster than their teacher. And in that sense, they became a team with the members of all other children in the coding club. Of course, there are a lot of recommendations that came out from this research. What we have learned is that acquisition of transversal skills like CTPS and coding requires innovative and pedagogical approaches. Obviously, this has been done by combining the critical thinking, problem solving, and using the microbit for the first time across the Western Balkans. Learning coding also proved to be a life skill. The program demonstrated that coding is not the skill to be associated with exceptional abilities only, but an achievable learning objectives for all children. One of the very powerful statements which came out as a recommendation that the microbit should be included systematically throughout the curricula. This is important because we have delivered 100,000 microbits across primary schools in Western Balkans. However, there is need for much more. However, change will not happen by chance. In order to ensure the impact and overnight, there is a need to systematically integrate support mechanisms and remove existing barriers, which we are all aware there are many. In the Western Balkans, the inclusive education started being promoted or included in the legal educational acts around 2009-2010 across the Western Balkans. There are a lot of legal preconditions which recognize the need for additional support to vulnerable children. However, there is still a lot to be done in practice. For sustainability, more is needed on different fronts, from curricular adjustment and novel learning methods to support to teachers and improve learning environments. And with this, I would like to finalize my presentation, but I need to stress out very strongly that the project impact in general and specific on vulnerable children would not be possible without working with highly motivated and dedicated teachers, open to innovative approaches and willing to embrace new technologies ready to step out from their comfort zone and change their everyday teaching practice. This was important because it was extremely difficult to do so also in the times of pandemics. We have worked with 18,000 teachers across the Western Balkans. And I know that there are many teachers and educators attending this conference today, so I would like to say a big thank to all of you for doing the great work with our children. I would also like to give special thanks to the Microbit Foundation, who is our partner in this program and who supported us in many ways with project implementation. Thank you all, and I wish you successful continuation of the conference.
Thank you so much, Nina and Claire, for a wonderful presentation. Rachel in the chat added here that this information you presented today is truly inspirational to hear, and I agree. So thank you for your time and for sharing this wonderful information with us. Next up, we have interactive sessions, so please click leave and return to the sessions area to move to your next session of awesomeness, and have a great rest of your Microbit event. So thank you, everyone.